Thank you so much. Hey, I really appreciate you guys coming to this session, spending your time with me today. I'm going to do everything that I can to make this a very valuable session for you. Session goal is to have you be able to walk away with the ability to build your own 12-month reverse engineered revenue plan. I'm going to touch on 10 marketing strategies. I'm going to go into depth on 6 of them. I'm going to give you performance benchmarks for every one of them to give you a sense of what you should be expecting from them in your own work. And then budgeting guidance so you know how much you should be spending on them, and then my scrappy execution tips for each of them. Quick check in the room. How many folks are executives as part of companies who are learning how to market today? And how many folks are with agencies? Okay, right on. Thank you for that. So this session really focuses on a specific kind of company. This is like high-ticket B2B companies in complex enterprise selling environments. If this feels like you, you're probably in the right space. Most of the companies that I work with and support are in all of these categories: high-ticket solutions growing from 5 to 50 million, companies entering the third circle. If you're looking at this slide going, that is not me, and I do not work with those people, totally get it. If you need to make your way to a different session, I would not be offended. I have crafted these strategies to be effective for these people specifically, but even if you're not a bullseye on that, you might find value in this session. Companies entering the third circle. Well, Colt, what is the third circle? So glad you asked. This is how I think about companies growing from when they first get started. First circle would be your founders selling, right? So, oh, by the way, thank you for taking the photos. I'm actually going to give you guys a QR link to this deck that gives you all of this plus a whole lot more. I'm going to talk about that in a second. You don't have to take photos. First circle, founders selling, right? When a company first starts, they sell to the people they know they have access to, no problem, that's easy. Second circle, you work with your first clients to find the people you can sell to next. Who else do you know who would need a solution like ours? Okay, that's referral selling. Third circle, the wide open market, no one's ever heard of you. How are you going to succeed? Those are the people who I help with these strategies. Prerequisites, before you can get started with this, you've kind of got your core messaging and branding figured out. Sure, you've got your value props and differentiators, that's important. Really what matters most is that you've proven you have a sales process. If what we're going to do is create great success with marketing strategies and dump a bunch of stuff onto the sales team, but the sales team can't handle it, you are going to waste a ton of money and a ton of effort, and you're going to cripple your metrics for conversion rates. Please don't do that. Only get into these strategies if you've got these prerequisites in place, plus a revenue goal. You need to have a known targeted revenue goal. I like to take them as 12-month revenue goals. Okay, the resources that I'm going to give you for this session so you can get things done. I'm going to give you this rule-breaking deck, and I don't call it a rule-breaking deck because it's awesome and edgy. I call it a rule-breaking deck because it does things that normally I would say, please never do, which would be a lot of copy that's in the deck, like written copy, and number 2, I'm going to read some of that copy off the deck. Why would I do that? Why would I create a deck like that for you, you beautiful people who've come to my session? I would do that because I want the deck to speak for itself when you get access to it. That's one of the resources that I'm giving you. So if you want to refer to the deck later without my talk track, it will be meaningful to you. Otherwise, I would like to show you a deck that's mostly image-driven, which I'm not doing today. Tools and templates, copy and content, and then some tutorial videos will be included. And here it is. This is where you get out your phones. As they get out the phones, I like to make it think it's about me, taking a picture, yeah. That's where you will find all the resources, or you can use the tiny URL. This is like a laptops are invited session because there's a lot of content that you can look at. Go ahead, and anyone else need a moment for scanning that? It will come back later. I'm going to refer to, I think there are a dozen, maybe even 15 resources in that folder. I'll be referring to them throughout this presentation. Almost every one of those resources is its own conference session, so just be aware that there's a lot of depth. And I'm giving you basically some of my most valuable tools and resources here. This is my Oprah giveaway moment, right? Everyone here gets my resources. You get my resources, and you get my resources. No? Okay. Who am I? Okay, so I'm a 24-year marketing exec. I've been part of 2 successful exits, including 1 unicorn. I have 1 book coming out in 2 weeks called The Race to Relevance, and another book coming out in 2 quarters called Reverse Engineering Revenue. That's basically what this session is. I'm also a person who's not allowed to have coffee. You can probably figure out why. Here we go. In order to ensure value for your time, I want you to take a note if any of these 3 things are happening for you. It will probably be the case that we have time for Q&A after. Right after this, I'm booked for the mentor sessions in the Rotunda. Somebody blazing out of this room over to there to participate in that. But if you find me afterwards and you have any of these 3 things you want to talk about, please Like, find me, flag me down, look for the shoes. Bam! Okay. This is going to go kind of fast. Anyone see Ford versus Ferrari? This is what I think some people feel like when they go through my sessions. Just a little intense. You probably already spotted it. Here we go. The first thing that we need to do if we're going to reverse engineer revenue is we need to define the marketing department's horizon of responsibility. What is the marketing department going to be responsible for? So the total company revenue goal is not marketing's responsibility. Some portion of it will be. Right, so you can think about there's direct selling. This is the sales team. They're doing direct prospecting, cold prospecting. That's on the sales team, right? And you have also white selling with existing customers, right? Those types of things aren't necessarily going to be the marketing team's responsibility, though the marketing team can, of course, support those efforts. The second component of defining your horizon of responsibility is when does it become the sales team's problem or opportunity? Where you have done your job and you hand it to the sales team to do their job. It doesn't mean it's like siloed, you can continue to support, but understanding exactly what you're responsible for is key. So what we're going to be talking about today when I talk about your revenue goal is the marketing team's revenue goal. Because again, the marketing team can't be responsible for all of the company's revenue goal with these other considerations in mind. When you have the marketing team's revenue goal, you know what they're responsible for. These are the formulas for reverse engineering that into what the marketing team is going to be responsible for. Revenue equals your average contract value times your number of deals. That's pretty straightforward. ACV times the number of deals equals your revenue. I think nodding. I see a lot of nodding. That's good. Yes. Okay. Deals equals your opportunities, the number of opportunities times your opportunity conversion rate. Pretty basic stuff because there's a lot of marketers in the room. You know it. You get it. Like a 25% opportunity conversion rate. That might be an average. And your opportunities equals your leads times your lead conversion rate. So let's set our scenario for the rest of the conversation. Assuming a 12-month revenue objective that is owned by the marketing team of $10 million and an average contract value of $500,000, you need to have 20 deals. This is high-ticket B2B enterprise-level selling. And this is not unusual for the kind of clients I work with. They need 20 deals, 40 deals, 30 deals. That's sort of the range that they operate in. In order to get there, because of these conversion rates, an opportunity conversion of 25% and a lead conversion opportunity leads to opportunities to close deals, 15%, 25% to close deals. We will have to give this customer, or my company, whatever you would think about it, 20 deals, which would come from 80 opportunities, because 60 of those are not going to get converted. And then you need 533 leads to get to 80 opportunities based on that conversion rate. You do not need both 533 leads and 80 opportunities. If you can get the opportunities directly, that's fantastic. If you need to go to leads first and then convert those, that's how many leads you'll need. If you get all of that, you'll be doing really well. Additional factors. How long does it take for your company to close a deal? Does it take you 12 months, 18 months to close a deal? Well, if that's the case, this revenue is not coming in 2025. These additional factors will have to be considered. I put them up here. I'm not going into them in depth. You're going to have to sort of extrapolate from these factors for your own circumstances, right? The other thing that's on here is the balance between brand visibility and actually getting the opportunities in the door. So brand visibility meaning if you need to build trust in your marketplace. Are you defining a new market segment? Have you brought to market a completely new product that requires the market be educated before you can be successful at converting these leads? Well, perhaps you need to focus more of your energy on brand awareness and market awareness for your solutions. That's just all factors you'd have to consider. But I'm focusing here on reverse engineering your revenue. In this conversation, we're going to talk about, well, I'm going to focus on 6 to 8 of these. There's, I say 13-ish up on here because you can see the 2 on the top are both conferences, 2 approaches to conferences, and there's also two versions of approaching webinars that are in here. These are the marketing strategies that I use with my clients to get them to their revenue goals. Each market will have variables that will determine which of these strategies will create for you the most success. Prioritizing your strategies is step 2. This is how I like to think about prioritizing these strategies. You have ROI, meaning opportunities generated or leads generated, and then brand visibility. And again, depending on where you're sort of metering your emphasis as a company between those two will help you decide how you would prioritize these things. This is an example prioritization list that I provided for a client. It's not the same every time. It depends on who they are, what they're going after, what they're trying to sell, the market they're trying to sell in. What does the circumstance look like around the publishers in that market? What does the circumstance look like around the conferences in that market? All these things will be factors to determine how you will prioritize the strategies that you're going to use for that client or for your own company. Once you have, and you can talk to peers in the space, you can figure out what historical performance has been, you can use those factors to prioritize. But once you have determined which strategies you're going to use, now you need to paint those strategies across 12 months of time. Paint those strategies across 12 months of time so that each month, month by month, you know what you're going to do, how much you're going to spend on it, and what you're expecting it to yield in terms of leads and opportunities. Where's the important cells in this sheet is at the bottom right. When you take this thing all the way out to December, as you're projecting your 2025 plan, you take this thing all the way out to December and look at the bottom right. And you can see what was required. We talked about that on an earlier slide, 533 leads and 80 opportunities. Based on what I'm projecting, sum total across 12 months, and then down at the bottom, how much is my plan going to generate for me? If it is not at least 80 opportunities, you need to rethink what you have done to project that year. You have to get to that number 80. This particular plan, even though I completely faked this, was 122 opportunities. Then great, this should work out just fine. You also want to watch out for overspending. We'll talk about that later. Strategy number 1, speed dating events. Anyone familiar with corporate speed dating events? Ooh, how exciting. Just a couple of you. Great, that means I get to teach you about them. So, in the industries that I operate in, that's business process outsourcing, financial services, SaaS solutions, technology, and healthcare, all of these industries have speed dating events. They're often called summits. And the way that they work is the producers of speed dating events, they entice participants to come. These would be the stakeholders of companies that represent buyers, right? Buyer stakeholders. And they entice them to come to destination resorts with strong content agendas. So they'll bring in speakers to teach them things that will be valuable for them in their careers. And they put them up at these resorts and they give them these speakers and presenters, and it costs them nothing. It costs the stakeholder participants nothing. It's all sponsored by the vendors. And the vendors paying for it because there's an agreement. If you come, Mr. and Mrs. Stakeholder, Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, come to the event and you're willing to sit down for 3 or 4 pitch meetings, then we'll fund this trip for you. Corporate speed dating is a direct, one-on-one chance to create opportunities, right? So I've seen this offered as a part of conferences. So like HFMA, the Healthcare Financial Management Association, has their A&I conference or their Western Symposium, which will happen in January. As part of that conference, as a sponsoring vendor, you can buy speed dating opportunities. So if you buy a package of 3, it's $5,000 for that particular conference. That's going to get you 3 meetings with people who are looking for someone who offers your type of solution, and they are a qualified prospect for you. Corporate speed dating events. The ones who do this really well do a great job of pre-qualifying on both sides. So when the buyer swipes right and you swipe right, quote unquote, you get to sit down and have that meeting. Those meetings can last anywhere from 15, 20, 25, or 30 minutes. Corporate speed dating opportunities. This is just an example of what you could expect to spend. With another group, Marcus Evans, which is a group that puts on speed dating events across many different industries. I would write that down if you're actually interested in corporate speed dating events. Marcus Evans. There's many of them. That's one of them. You can expect to spend about $40,000 for a corporate speed dating opportunity. They're going to give you 12 meetings for that, for your team to sit down and talk with buyers, solution stakeholders for the companies that you're trying to target. Why is the possible ROI start at 0? Because with as little as 3 meetings, if your conversion rates of opportunities to close business is 0.25, you might not get 1. That's why it can go that low. How do you make sure you're on the well-performing side of something like this? Scrappy's keys to success. Obviously, you want to research your market first and find out who brings these opportunities. What I have learned is that the people who offer speed dating are very bad at marketing what they do. Conferences you can find very easy. People who offer speed dating are harder to find. You'll have to do some researching, talk to your peers in your space to figure out if speed dating events are available. I find them to be one of the best returns on a dollar from a marketing budget standpoint. Obviously, research your delegates. You want to know what they're up to, learn about them. Focus on qualifying, not selling. Don't make the 25 minutes about pitching. Learn what you can do to figure out how to navigate their buying opportunities, their buying journey. Figure out who's involved, what it looks like, how long it takes. And then BAM-FAM, B-A-M-F-A-M. Book a meeting from a meeting. Never let the meeting stop before you figured out when you're going to have your next call. If you have to chase them down by email, it's never going to work. It just takes forever. It's crippling. You're going to see BAM-FAM in this presentation a couple times. It's one of my favorites. All right. Also, number 2, engagement events. This is where you're creating your own event. Could be the Kentucky Derby, could be a sporting event, could be a concert, could be a golf event. There's a lot of different possibilities. Putting on your own event, you can identify a region. Look, we're really trying to penetrate the Nashville market. Okay, well, let's find a concert at the Nashville market. Let's find an event in the Nashville market. Or we're trying to attract people of a specific buyer type. Great, put an event and invite them to it. This is where you basically create your own speed dating event. But if you make it like a timeshare experience, they will hate you for it. So don't turn your events into a pitch opportunity. Turn your events into a chance to build rapport and relationship. It's a strong strategy, and you can create your own events to make that happen. Again, ROI goes as low as 0. Why? Because the opportunities in this case started as low as 3, and if you have a 25% conversion rate, you may not close anyone. You want to think about bringing more people to this event, having them talk with each other, bring in some of your clients, let them schmooze. Do not pitch at these meetings. Build relationships that you can follow up on, and bam, fam, whenever you can. Here's examples of engagement events. Again, you guys have this deck in the resources that I gave you. I think you can find great suggestions for events by using ChatGPT, which you can see somewhere. Yeah, use GPT for local and regional event suggestions. I was blown away. I tried this specifically. I went to GPT. I said, I'm trying to do an engagement event I think I started with Tampa, and then I did Dallas, and then I did San Diego. And the results were location-specific, great suggestions for how to put together events. I have found events to be really successful if I like the event that I'm going to. I'm not a golfer. I'm not going to do a golf event. I'll just be miserable. Don't do something that you would be miserable doing. Invite people to something that you would have fun doing. And again, yeah, not about selling. Take pictures of you and them participating in the event. When I see a picture of myself in a follow-up email from somebody, I'm much more likely to respond. I'm like, oh yeah, I know who this person is, right? You see Bam Fam up there? Is it up there? It's totally up there. It's very important. Okay. 2 kinds of webinars: publisher-hosted webinars and self-hosted webinars. Webinars are more effective at building leads than they are building opportunities, but they can be an effective way to get you the top of funnel leads that can convert into opportunities. Publisher-hosted means in your industry, there's people who produce trade journals, digital newsletters, or the conferences, and most times these people also offer you the opportunity to sponsor webinars. So your company can sponsor webinars to get your content into those channels. I'll talk about what kind of content in a second, but here's kind of the rough benchmark that I have seen for the clients in my spaces, the types of clients that I work with. They generally find that these publishers are charging between $15,000 and $30,000, and they commit to bringing 250 to 350 registrants, which ultimately converts to 120, 170 attendees, which turns into 20 to 40 leads, and then ultimately, based on that conversion rate, 3 to 6 opportunities. So why is the ROI start at 0? Oh man, oh, it just got so awkward. Yes, because of the conversion rate. Yeah, you need to have at least 4 for the ROI to not be possibly 0, but you get the idea. But the ROI can be very promising, right? So if you're in an investment range between $15,000 and $30,000 and you can potentially get as much as $270,000 worth of closed business out of that opportunity, well, it's a pretty viable strategy. Self-hosted webinars are a little different. If you're resource constrained, you don't have the dollars to buy to sponsor a webinar through a major publisher in your industry, you can self-host. Self-host your webinar, and you're going to use your dollars to focus on creating visibility on LinkedIn or other social channels that may be promising in your industry or your sector, right? So LinkedIn is phenomenal at targeting the right kind of stakeholders. Of course, that's true in the other social channels as well. Identify who your buyers are, what kind of companies they're for, set your criteria as specific as you'd care to, and that will get you visibility for your webinar event. I have resources to help you with webinars in the folder, but let me just speak to this real quick. If you're going to do either publisher or self-hosted webinars, here's some of the suggestions that I have. Really focus your content on solving their problems. Do not focus your content on pitching your solutions. It's about demonstrating that you have the intelligence that they are looking for that solves their problems. You know, you're going to save them time, advance their careers, this type of thing in your webinars. If you are doing a publisher-hosted, doesn't mean you're off the hook. Yeah, supplement their efforts. Use your own networks to promote your webinars coming up, right? That's a nice way to get even more out of those investments. I like including leave behinds, invitations and pathways. If you ended the webinar and it was like, great, thanks, bye, bye, but you haven't given them any way to continue to follow your content, that's a fail. Make sure that you have a way for them to continue following the next thing that you're going to do. Introduce them to your content resources, just like I've given you guys, right? QR code, short code, make it drop dead simple. If you want them to book a meeting, at the end of the thing, don't make it an email follow-up. Just make it a QR code that takes them right to like a Calendly link. And I love it when you include pictures of who they're going to be meeting with. Personalize it if you can. FlowSend is really good. I don't know if you guys have tried FlowSend. It's an AI content generator. If you record your webinar, take that video and push it into FlowSend. FlowSend will extract from that video an article, a white paper, several LinkedIn posts, tweets, anything you want. It automatically generates written content from video material. It's quite good at it. Use FlowSend to give you like a +6 on the value of the content that you're going to create with a webinar. I have 2 resources in there to help you. If you're going to self-host a webinar, I've given you my 8-week schedule and plan, so you can see exactly how to get a webinar executed internally. It's basically trading your own effort for dollars. If you have the publisher take care of it, you're paying the money. If you take care of it, you're paying the time. This schedule will show you how to do that, and I've given you my guidance on how to focus on creating thought leadership content that will be good. Dimensional mailers. This is like a classic technique, but it's still damn valuable. As the electronic communication channels become just packed with garbage, people are paying less attention to their emails, less attention to their feeds. It's just an overwhelmed thing. Finding them through physical channels actually is proving to be quite effective for my clients anyway. I don't make money pitching this stuff. I'm just telling you what works for me. So this is WellStack's one, is the second one here. They actually selected their favorite wellness products they were going to put in their package. That's the WellStack Wellness Pack, yay, that they mailed out. And because it was personal to them when they called up and said, hey, I just sent you a package. I hope you received it. In there, you've got, it's actually my favorite supplement. It's the AG1 packets. I really like those. Hope you enjoy those. Been looking to get into a conversation with you. Hope we can talk next week. You have a QR code on that card if you want to scan that. I'd love to get a conversation going, right? So take it as a conversation starter point that you can follow up on. You're just softening the beach to follow up. Use items that are personal to you, right? So don't send them just random generic crap from an automatic prepackaged vendor that puts together like, the sausages and the cheeses, unless those are valuable to you. Find things that are meaningful to you and send those instead. Here's an example of a campaign. Total spend is $10,000, targeted accounts, total 55 packages that you're going to send. 40 of them are going to new, but 2 each. 2 each. Why did I go 2 each? If you send 2 packages to 2 key stakeholders in a targeted account, when you do your follow-up, you can reference that you had sent one to Jim and Susan. If you send your email to both Jim and Susan, hi Jim and Susan, sent you a couple packages, hope you received them, your response rates will go up significantly. Just referencing another person in the organization, significant increase in your response rates for those follow-ups. I've also suggested 15 in this sort of example. This actually maps it very closely to one of my clients recently did. 15 to existing conversations. If you're in a 6-month, 8-month, 12-month, 16-month sales cycle, these things help to move things along, right? It builds a relationship, continues to move things along. I do recommend using them for that purpose. So let's say you got 8 opportunities. That breaks down to $12.50 per opportunity, projected conversion rate. Going to get 2 new clients out of this. That's a pretty strong ROI if you can succeed with those conversion rates. Yeah, here we go. So personalized, custom. So use your photo, QR code, etc., for people to follow up with you. Make that very easy to do. And there is no silver bullet in marketing in this way. You could send the best package ever. It doesn't mean they're going to call you automatically. All the same rules will apply. Effective follow-up is going to be key. It's like, oh, we sent out 50 and nobody called. Don't doubt that. If you sent out 50 and you followed up, you're going to get a better response rate than if you were calling just pure cold. This is a beach softener. Does that make sense? Beach softener. New thing, write it down. TM. Yes?
How are you
validating addresses?
How are you tackling that?
Yeah, it can be hard. My favorite, I actually don't like Zoom as much anymore as I like Seamless. Seamless AI has proven to me to be the more effective tool for getting correct addresses for people that are valid. I'm getting about a 15% return, like no address return rate, based on the addresses that are coming from that and the success that I'm hearing from my clients about the responses. Oh, I got your package. This is great. I love this stuff. I mean, I'm actually getting really good feedback that these packages are working well. So check out Seamless AI for more accurate address information on your targets. Thanks for the question. Thought leadership campaigns. I'm sure this room is all well-versed in thought leadership. Yes? Some nodding? No nodding? Oh, yes. Okay, there's nodding. Cool. You can spend nothing on your thought leadership. I recommend that if you're going to invest in creating good thought leadership, especially if it's going to take time from your subject matter experts, that you also spend some money in creating visibility for that thought leadership content, right? So you created a nice white paper, article, blog posts, video, webinar, whatever, tactics, best practices, executables. You're sharing guidance in the marketplace. Spend some money to get visibility for that and try to build a subscriber base along the way. This is just an example of some potential ROI. Thought leadership oftentimes is really just it's a long ball play. Takes time, have to build it, keep going with it, be consistent. I have some clients who produce reports once a quarter. They produce reports once a quarter. So they're market-facing intelligence reports based on the data that they're sitting on, because they sit on data from dozens or hundreds of clients that any one of those clients would never have access to. So they can produce benchmarking reporting, industry trends, what's going on, key data, key insights on a quarterly basis. But what they'll do is they'll take insights from those on a weekly basis, and they'll just carve out this week's insights from the quarterly report, right? So they can produce one super beefy piece of content and get all kinds of posts from it afterwards. And again, FlowSend is your friend for that kind of information. Solve their problems rather, advance their careers. Like if you're not hitting these notes with the content you're creating, please rethink about it, because if a bot can write your content, you are not writing content anyone cares about. It has to be based on the insights that your subject matter expertise team has. Real, legitimate insights that they cannot get on their own. That's what they're going to care about. And then make it tight and easy for me to read it, get it, grab the value, and use that on Monday. That's content that matters. That's content that will get you leads. This can be a strong strategy. And obviously, pathways for engagement is important, right? So if you're just giving them the one piece, but they have no idea how to continue with you, you've really lost the rich opportunity that exists in great thought leadership content. Okay, some keys to success. I think we just actually covered that, right? These are some of the things that I ask my clients to think about when they're working on creating their thought leadership content. Try to keep the burden on your subject matter expertise, your actual operators, pretty lightweight. Like use interview formats. I'm going to share with you the content creation framework that I use to do two things. Identify the best topics that your exact targets want you to produce content on. And number two, how do you interface with your internal subject matter experts in a way that is minimally burdensome to them so that you can create fantastic content? I'm just going to give you that resource. That's I think that's that one right there. Yeah, that's in the folder. You guys have that, along with the template that I've given you for a creative brief and a subject matter expert intake questionnaire, right? So I'm just giving you the framework for how I get this done. If you're going to interface with your SMEs internally, please use these resources to do so. That's thought leadership. On to the next. Conference exhibiting guerrilla style. That's kind of what I'm doing. These shoes have started 4 conversations for me today. You can see the picture that I had this actually built. I ordered these shoes for my entire team, and man, they started a ton of conversations. They didn't have a booth. They were the booth. This is another one in the bottom right. This is my team. I'm actually the one in the middle. That's the revenue cycle first responders. We showed up at EMTs at that conference. We had more visibility than anybody with a booth. And sometimes that actually was a little troubling. I remember getting into an elevator at this event. I got into an elevator at this event. This is at the Hyatt in Chicago. I got into an elevator and somebody else got in. I was just trying to get it to my room real quick to grab something. I got into the elevator and the person said, "Thanks for what you do." The amount of time we were going to spend in that elevator before that person got out was not long enough for me to explain it. It was going to take me at least 60 seconds. I had like 10. So I just said, "Thanks." Anyway, so this on the bottom left, it's a lapel project. I don't know if you guys saw that on Shark Tank. Great. It can make, if your team just refuses to wear t-shirts, fine. Find some way to make their suits stand out, their backpacks stand out, their shoes stand out, whatever. Conference exhibiting is all about going to a conference without spending the money on the booth, which is getting a little challenging these days. My opinion is if you're going to spend the money on the booth, you might need to go big if you want that to pay off. And I'm show you some strategies for that in a second. Yeah, be the booth. Guerrilla conference exhibiting. I think of this in 3 categories. I think about it a local, regional, and national. So you're thinking about it from a cost and yield standpoint. You can think about it small, medium, large as well. And work with your sales teams to understand what the expectation is. I don't let a sales team go to a conference. I do not invest in a conference for a sales team unless that sales team has committed to a result. How many opportunities are you going to get out of this event? And then you could start building a precedent with your organization. Every time you guys go to a regional conference, you're generating 5 opportunities. Then we know what that is worth. And if you can improve that over time, then we're going to invest more over time. But you have to have that commitment coming from them. This is pretty standard that I see from my clients, like the small local ones, 2 to 4 opportunities, regional 3 to 6, and national 5 to 10. And this is the guerrilla style. Of course, you can spend, this is mostly just getting them into the show, like buying the tickets, 3 or 4 people, maybe 4 or 5 people, affording their travel, et cetera. That's the kind of budgeting we're talking about here, right? And this is sort of the expectation for what that's going to return for you and your team. So this becomes, I think, strategy number 4 or 5. How do I measure that? Here's how I measure it. How many new leads did you bring me, new opportunities? How many prospect meetings did you actually conduct while you were there? How many meetings with existing clients, continuing to build our relationships? And then finally, how many existing currently open opportunities did you advance while you were there? All 5 of those are key measures for success out of a conference, but there's actually 15 measures that I use for conferences, and I have included that resource in your folder as well. Conventional conference exhibiting, as I mentioned a second ago, I'm starting to become of the opinion that it's like go big or go home with conventional conferences. I see so many people just blending in because they think the brand has to be present. Just being present is not producing much result anymore. The ones that I see like really go for it, this was the second year that we did with the EMTs. We actually brought in our ambulance, so the company was called Ensemble, and we called that the Ensembulance. Chuckles. Thank you. And this is the booth. We tried to make our booth very distinct, wanted it to feel like a spa experience rather than just the standard B2B whatever. So we did invest in that. It stood out, and it was quite different because we were representing that our company was quite different, and that worked out well. This booth here, that's Zach and Brianna. They actually fabricated this booth. That's DreamWorks based out of Santa Rosa. Super standout booth in the context that they were in. Just went for this farm stand experience because they wanted people to feel like that's what they were doing, right? A very fresh experience. What can you expect to spend and what can you expect for a result for standard conference exhibiting? Small, medium, and large, local, regional, national. These are the numbers. Same measures at the bottom. Same measures at the bottom. But as I'm mentioning, you want to go big, especially at a national conference. That's why you can see 3 pluses at the right side of the number 50,000 on the biggest conferences. You can just spend a fortune at those conferences. So yeah, kind of sky's the limit there. But it's sort of like, what do your resources allow for, and how much are you trying to get in terms of revenues in the door? Okay. Conference exhibiting. There's a lot of tips on here. I'm going to focus on a few of them. How was my time? Oh, I'm doing okay. Right on. Hey, did you guys see BAMFam up there? Yes. Stoked. Okay. Consistent follow-up with photos. I like to recommend when I'm having a conversation with somebody at a conference, like this one, I did this yesterday, having a conversation, build rapport, everything's going great, having a great conversation, we got to follow up. I will actually say, hey, let me do this, because I'm gonna get a lot of emails, you're gonna get a lot of emails. I'm gonna just go ahead and snap our photo here. Great, thank you. I'm gonna send that photo along with my follow-up email so you remember the conversation. That has been a massive increase in response rates for my follow-up. And I only do that if I can't BAMFam. If it's like, oh, I just don't have my calendar, I can't. Ooh, next week's weird. Okay, I'll take the photo and see if I can follow up. I will also ask that person, this is my I ask them to give me the subject line hack. What does that mean? I'm going to send a follow-up email. You're probably going to get follow-ups from 100 people here. What word or phrase should I include in my subject line when I send you an email to make sure that you spot it? Right? Is it Go Giants? Is that going to do it? Is it Harvard Rules? Is that it? What is the subject line? Give me the subject line, and when you see it, you're going to open it. Let them tell you how to hack their own inbox. If you're not getting the right feedback from them, you're just pre-qualifying that they're probably not interested in having that conversation anyway. Somebody who asks you for a business card instead of a calendar appointment might just be looking for an exit ticket from your conversation with them. Hey, do you have a business card? Maybe like a piece of collateral I can take? Super, thanks, bye. Just see if you can't get that person to BAMFam with you. And if you can't, maybe you just saved yourself 12 months of follow-up that aren't going to go anywhere. What else do I have? Brand visibility. We already talked about standout wardrobe. Post-conference updates. Yeah, I got that. Industry and competitive reconnaissance. Oh, yeah. One other way that you can make your conference investments effective to produce a return for you is to have your team doing reconnaissance while they're there. Reconnaissance about competitive solutions. Reconnaissance about whose booth rocks and who's attracting people. Reconnaissance about outfits that are standing out and grabbing attention. Have your team come back with intelligence, not just leads. How do you do that? Well, I'm so glad you asked. Conference team recon guidance. That's a PowerPoint deck that's in there. You can use that deck to present directly to your growth team. This is the reconnaissance missions that I want to send you guys on. If you're sending 4 people, there's literally 4 different assignments in that deck. Give each of your 4 team members one of those 4 assignments and have them come back and report on their mission. conference reconnaissance. They'll also learn a lot along the way that becomes opportunities for conversion, which I think is valuable. I'm going to give you the 15 measures of conference success, and then I've got these two, basically, which we just talked about, the conference USSIes and better conference follow-up. And then I have my scrappy guide for conference success. Any one of those would be its own presentation. Please refer to the folder to find that information because I want you guys to be successful with your conference investments. We talked about thought leadership. Who has heard about thought followership? All right, it's going to grow. I'm going to TM this. Thought followership basically flips thought leadership on its head. With thought leadership, you're showcasing the expertise that your organization possesses for a marketplace. For buyers and stakeholders in your marketplace, you're showing how much brilliance exists in your organization. Thought followership flips it on its head by having your targets become the experts and you become the host of that series. Here's the thesis set in 3 steps. You're going to host and record a series of interviews with industry stakeholders at your targeted accounts on a critical conversation for moving your industry forward. Publish the interviews to drive brand awareness, clout, and demand for more content, and use this market position to build the relationships with your key prospects and convert the relationships to closed business. I'll say it even simpler. New word, write it down. Your company becomes the brought to you by brand, facilitating a critical conversation of the brightest minds to move your industry forward. This is a very effective strategy. I'm using this now with 4 of my clients, and it is working beautifully. Think about it this way. Instead of reaching out to ask somebody, can I get a half hour to show you our demo? It's we have an interview series going, a content series going about, and then state the critical importance of it. I'll give you Wellstack's example. We're hosting an interview series about America's transition to value-based care from the lens of data management. We know that you guys have done a lot of work on that. We'd really like to add your voice to this conversation. Think about that invitation versus we'd like to get you onto the half-hour demo. This is a strong relationship-building opportunity, and it's working beautifully for my clients. If you want the how-to, it's in the resources. You have it, but it's also here. This is 7 steps for making it work. You have to announce the series, engage your friendlies. That's where you start. You start with people who have clout titles to interview them to get things started, to get momentum going for your series. You're going to build content and relationships with a thought followership strategy. If you guys like, again, thought followership on its own is its whole session. Actually, at the B2B exchange in Phoenix last year, I did a 2.5-hour workshop on thought followership. It's a lot to it, but it's a strong strategy. What does it look like? This is what it looks like. This is a series of interviews. Occasionally, I was actually the person who sat down because Brian, who's you can barely see on the right side of the lower right there, is the CEO of this particular client. This is VisiQuate. Brian would normally do the interviews. Occasionally, I did. But we sat 56 C-suite executives from their targeted accounts in that chair for those interviews. That is a powerful opportunity-building strategy. And I'll give you their case study. So their series was called RCM Innovators. RCM stands for Revenue Cycle Management. So this is people who are innovating technologies on the back office of American healthcare. Here's the case study specifics. They recorded all their interviews during 2 conferences. You can do them over Zoom. You can do them lots of different ways. You can spread them over time. These guys concentrated them all into conferences. They did it on 2 trade shows and 2 days of interviews per show and 14 25-minute interviews per day. So they ended up with 56 interviews, 30 for new relationships, 20 for advancing existing, and 6 for growing existing partnerships. These are kind of the specifics. If you want to know what VisiQuate's like as a company, their average contract was about $400,000 and they had $40 million in annual sales. What did they get out of that? Well, they got a lot out of that. As you can see, it's right here, right? 15% close rate on 30 new campaign qualified leads, CQL, campaign qualified. They told me who would qualify, and they put that person in the chair. I produced the series for them. Give you the punchline down here. $16 million with lifetime value of converted opportunity for 29x ROI in what they spent. Strong strategy. And now I have 4 clients who are using this strategy. Anyone can use this strategy on their own. It works. If you want to follow up with me afterwards, get the details. Happy to help you. If you want to book a call, I'm going to give you a QR code at the end. If you want to book a call just to understand how the hell to do it, I would be happy to walk you through it. They also got really strong visibility out of this strategy. From the 60 interviews, 3 video clips from each was 180 short video posts and 180 written posts. And now that FlowSend would have helped, this was 3 years ago, FlowSend would have helped them tremendously because FlowSend would have automatically generated those posts from the content. So a major, major time saver there. Lots of engagement. Definitely a benefit on 3 fronts, from revenue, from content, and from engagement. Strong strategy for that purpose. Keys to success with thought followership: definitely want a compelling topic, something that your industry would care about, something that the best experts in your industry would want their voice to be a part of. What is a strong conversation that you can facilitate, that you can be the brought to you by brand that owns that conversation? You put a flag in the ground that this is the conversation that your company owns, you will stand out as an organization. This is the conversation we are facilitating as a company. And we're going to highlight visibility for the thought leaders and the bright minds in this industry around that topic. Strong starter content, yeah, work with your best experts, the ones who are in your Rolodexes now. Invite them to the series first. Before you try to reach out to total strangers, find people who you can work with that are going to get you great content, and then build sizzle reels out of that and other things that you can use to promote it as a legitimized series that's got C-suite speakers in it, and now you're looking for the next participant. Strong coordination between sales and marketing, yeah. I like this question. So your customer, the people who you'd be targeting have proprietary data, they wouldn't want to share with the marketplace because they're in a competitive marketplace. All the people who I support are in exactly that situation, but none of the conversations that they're hosting would cause them to have to share proprietary information. It's more about sharing tactics, best practices, executables, guidance, dealing with the core problems. Another one that I'm working with is, so I'll go back to WellStack. WellStack's series is helping to facilitate the conversation for America's transition to value-based care, which is a massive undertaking. This is going to be like Human Genome Project level massive undertaking for American healthcare to get there. And it's a big problem. And unless we can break down the silos and collectively have this conversation as a kind of a unified group, we're only going to hit fits and starts. It's going to cost trillions and take decades. We have to have a bright minds conversation to solve these problems now. That's the energy behind their conversation. It's not share your private data. It's not give me your secret sauce tactics. It's can we collectively as an industry have a conversation that's going to move us towards this important goal. So I would say step up to a level of conversation that's bold at an industry level, and then you can be successful without stepping on toes on proprietary information. Yes, question in the back. I do, yeah, I like to recommend that. I mean, I don't necessarily need to put it on the front page as I reach out, but if you've demonstrated that you've created a lot of visibility with, let's say, your first 5 or 6 friendlies that you interviewed, and it's starting to look like a promising series, you put a nice tight sizzle reel together, it's well produced, be like, oh, shoot, that's a good platform. Like, and I always mention, they'll often get them in touch with me to kind of talk through what should this interview focus on to really help you shine as an expert. That's the first thing that I say. This is about having your voice, your thoughts, your ideas shine through in this industry. That's the emphasis, because the reality is, if the guest is able to shine brightly, the host, the brand, the hosting brand is going to win. Totally. Thanks for the great question. Here's a question I get a lot. Well, Colt, if I'm going to use content as a way to create visibility for my brand, how do I create visibility for the content? Great question. Here's my answer. This one I'm not going to read through. It's in your folder. You have this. If you want to photograph this, that's fine. This solves the chicken and egg problem of content as a way to get visibility for your company, because of course you have to have visibility for your content. Here's like 12 different answers to that question. Still reading, still reading, still reading. Done. Okay. Thought follow-up. Whoa, there's a lot of strategies. A lot of documents to support you in this strategy in the folder. Here's what they are. I'm not going to tell you what they are. But everything that you would need to actually successfully execute a thought follow-up strategy is loaded into that folder for you, including my thought follow-up execution toolkit, which is like 14 tabs of how to get this whole thing done from A to Z. And yes, that's a lot of value. Thank you, Oprah. Okay, how do you measure all this? That's my miniature waving inflatable at my house. I keep that in my desk drawer for inspiration. You know how it is. How do you measure it all? So this is an example of 1 month, the month of January, and I'm measuring across leads, opportunities, and revenue. But for leads and opportunities, there's three elements that matter to me. What did you project? What did you get? And what was the budget? Budget meaning how many did you actually need on a month-by-month basis to get to the goal? How much will have to come in? How much did you project? And how much did come in? Both for leads and opportunities. And then for revenue, how much are you projecting if these convert based on your historical conversion rates? Are you going to get in terms of revenue? And then what is the budget? This helps you to figure out if you're on track or off track. Track as you go. If you're falling short, hit the gas, right? Start to invest in other areas. I've given you 13 strategies to use. You can use any one of them to to backfill if you're falling short. If you are ahead of the game and you haven't front-loaded the year, but you're just actually ahead of the game, there is a cautionary. That can be a really great thing. It's like, look, we're way ahead of schedule. We've doubled the number of opportunities. Sounds good initially, but there is a caution. If you overload your sales team, your conversion rates are going to end up going down, and you will not be able to take care of the opportunities that you're creating. Do not outpace your sales capacity. Try to keep it balanced as you go. That's in your folder. This is an example of the chart. So I've actually built this for you, and here's my 13 strategies built across 12 months. Couldn't show this left to right because it's way too wide, but it is in your folder, so you can have that. You can use it for your own planning and fill it out, right? But what matters if you go all the way out, you scroll all the way out to December. This is what matters down here in the pink, or the fuchsia. Fuchsia, yeah. That's where it is, right? Total leads year to date, total opportunities created year to date, total projected average contract value year to date, and total spend year to date versus your budgets. What you've done versus what you need. This whole thing is what this whole thing comes down to, is comparing one of those two to the other. Benchmarking your spend. So all these things, I've given you costs for all these strategies and expected returns for all these strategies. Ultimately, you have to have some way to argue the case that there is X amount of budget that should be allocated to the marketing department in order to achieve these results. This is information that I've got that combines Harvard Business Review and Forbes, and I mean, this is all of it together. I see some nodding. Thank you for the nods. If you need to make a case, this is the high-level summary for making your case. Some of you are like, I don't have 1/10 of that. Who's in that situation right now? I feel you. I love you, right? I know that's where I came from. Those are the people I mostly support. Okay. Yeah. Okay, so you do have to sell your vision, right? So I've given you a ton of strategies, and it does look like I'm going to have time for some questions here, but let's just address the final thing here. If you're going to build this plan and demonstrate what it's going to yield, how much it's going to cost, what do you think it's going to yield, when it's going to happen, what months you're going to do what, these are the conferences identified, these are the speed dating events I think of, this is when we're going to drop our thought leadership, this is how we're going to do our thought fellowship. You have to sell this as a comprehensive vision. But what I have found in my own experience is that the better you get at that, the better you get at tying what marketing is doing to the business's top-level goals, to the goals they're talking about in the board meeting, to the goals they're talking about with the PE firm, to the goals they're talking about with the venture capital folks, the more valuable you become as a marketer. Rather than speaking on the level of commoditized offerings, I'm not talking about delivering a website, I'm not talking about producing your thought leadership. That's not the level of the conversation. You're going to take the level of the conversation to, I'm going to deliver your revenue goals. This is where you become very valuable as an employee. This is where you become very valuable as an agency. Delivering the revenue goals. That is why I'm not allowed to have coffee. All right. So for those of you who did not get access to it, this again is the QR code for all the resources that I have been mentioning throughout this presentation, also with the tiny URL code. That will get you to what you need. Anybody else need this? Everybody got it? 2 more. Did that work out? You got it. Both of you got it. Okay. And if you would like to have an appointment with me to talk about any of this stuff, I'm totally open to it. This is a 25-minute appointment. Right now the calendar's booked out through like mid-October. But please, yeah, if you would like to talk about how to get any of this done, I absolutely invite you to book time with me or find me later in this conversation. I have some bonus tips for you. But before we get into that, I want to figure out, I think I have 10-ish minutes left. Are there questions or clarifications about anything that I have presented for you today? Yes, there's one here. Podcasts as a lead generation tool. Great question. So I think about, first of all, in my mind, I go back to this slide, how do you make the content visible matters a lot. So I gave you 12 strategies to get the visibility for the podcast series that you have. I would be using FlowSend to turn your podcasts into multiple forms of content and slicing segments out of it to create visibility for that on LinkedIn. Like, here's a short segment. Here's 90 seconds from this that hits so hard. We had great insights in this little clip. Check that out. If you want to see this whole episode or the series, come back to our website, right? So you're drawing it back that way. It's a lead generating tool, right? It's not an opportunity generating tool. So as you can find people who are subscribing to your series, which is the ultimate technique for a podcast, is you actually know who's subscribing, then you can follow up on them as leads. Is that answering your question? Okay. Is there a question back there? No? Anybody else with a question? Going to bonus tips. Oh. Any other questions in the room? Yeah. How do you maintain momentum on thought followership? I'll tell you what, if you could get the same results that my clients are getting on thought followership, the momentum is just going to happen. What happens every time you have an episode is that episode is going to include a prospect, right? So and of course you need your sales team involved so that they know that that prospect is engaged with your company. But it works like this. So they'll receive, they get the pre-interview so we can find out what is your best areas of expertise. If we were to focus on that, you would just shine like an expert. So that's the first call. Then you have the second, either call or sit down. The interview actually takes place. And during the interview, ideally, your account owner is just scribbling like mad as this person's basically informing what it is that they think about, what keeps them up at night, what they're focused on in terms of their aspirations. So now you're just getting all the intelligence you need to eventually convert this into a close partnership. Next communication, they receive the first edit of the episode. It says, look, I want you to check out this episode. Is there anything you want us to cut out? We're going to cut it out. You are in total control of this content before we publish it. Great, that was the next communication. Hey, we just published it. We're starting to get some traction. And we created these 3 highlights because we thought you said amazing things here. And we're going to get those posted for you next week. Next communication, wow, we just posted our 3 highlights. We're getting traction. You know, when you mentioned XYZ about what your company is doing, reminded me of a client that we're working with is doing a similar thing. I'd love to get you in touch with Jim. And now you're in the magic of sales, right? You follow this process and start to see that these relationships build and convert to actual revenue, the momentum will carry itself. Plus, if your team is trying to figure out how do I create content on a consistent basis so we have visibility of our brand, this is creating the content for you. These are 20-minute, 30-minute, 40-minute interviews that you can take excerpts out of, have articles written from, and then you take the first 6 or 10 that you do and have that turned into like a key takeaways from 10 conversations with industry leaders on this topic. That's a great article or an ebook. Like the amount of content that you can get out of this is phenomenal, just in terms of the efficiency and cost savings using this as your content generation. Because the reality is, stakeholders don't want to hear from vendors. They want to hear from their peers. I want to hear from people in exactly my situation, right? Who are dealing with the problems that I'm dealing with, exactly my problems. That's what makes thought followership content so much more attractive than thought leadership content. That should help you with the momentum. Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, the student thing could work if you're just trying to build visibility. You'd have to get them comfortable with interfacing. If they're gregarious people, that might work, but have them quickly hand folks off to people who can actually carry the conversation would be my idea. But yeah, if it's another body on the floor and you've done something with outfits, backpacks, t-shirts, whatever that makes them stand out, oh, wow, you guys are really present at this event. I think that's a good idea. For your 150 hours of content on YouTube, flow send is your answer. Just load those videos up there and ask it for the outputs. It's so affordable, and man, that is a force multiplier. Hey, once again, I really appreciate you guys choosing to spend your time with me. I hope it was valuable. If you have any questions that come up afterwards, there's this. If you do want to book time with me, of course, I'm happy to do that. Otherwise, I'm going to blaze over to the Rotunda for the mentor sessions, and if you can catch me afterwards, please, I'd love to chat with you. Thank you so much.